The first truth that a Stoic must embrace is that transformation is not a matter of waiting for the perfect moment, but of seizing the moment that is already here. There will never be a sunrise that whispers, "Now you are ready," nor will there be a set of conditions so precise and comfortable that you will feel entirely certain before acting. The Stoics understood that the present moment is all we possess in reality. The past is untouchable. The future is unpredictable. What you have and what you will ever truly command is the breath you are taking right now. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire yet still bound by mortality, often reminded himself that the present moment was the only arena in which virtue could be exercised. Your transformation begins, not when you think you are ready, but when you decide that hesitation is more costly than imperfection. To live by this is to stop treating life as a rehearsal. Each conversation, each decision, each opportunity to act with courage and wisdom, these are not practice runs. They are the performance. And the more you wait for an ideal alignment of events, the more you allow fear and comfort to dictate the tempo of your existence. But seizing the moment does not mean acting recklessly or without thought. The Stoic does not confuse speed with urgency. Urgency is an inner recognition that the time to embody virtue is now. Recklessness is the impulsive surrender to whatever emotion shouts the loudest. This is why the Stoics paired decisiveness with reflection. Before you speak, you weigh your words. Before you commit, you measure your principles against the act. The transformation they speak of is not a frantic leap into the unknown, but a deliberate step forward, guided by reason, grounded in virtue. It is a refusal to let the endless what-ifs drown you in paralysis. In this sense, to be Stoic is to be ready in the same way a soldier is ready. Not because the battle is pleasant, but because the battle is unavoidable. A second foundation for transformation is to redefine your relationship with discomfort. In modern life, we have been taught to see discomfort as an enemy, a signal that something has gone wrong. The Stoics would call this a dangerous delusion. Discomfort is a natural condition of growth, and growth is the natural purpose of the rational mind. Seneca advised practicing poverty, sleeping on the floor, and eating meager meals, not out of self-punishment, but to ensure that fear of losing comfort would never dictate his choices. Today, the smallest inconveniences send people into outrage, as though the absence of ease were an insult to their existence. But when you train yourself to see discomfort as a teacher rather than a threat, you reclaim a kind of inner sovereignty. Cold water, hunger, rejection, fatigue, each becomes a forge for your endurance. And with each trial, you not only learn how much you can endure, but also strip away the illusion that comfort is the measure of a good life. Yet this shift requires a brutal honesty with oneself. Many people claim to seek transformation, but in truth, they only wish to rearrange the furniture of their comfort zone. They want change without risk, wisdom without sacrifice, peace without discipline. The Stoic cannot afford such illusions. To transform, you must accept that parts of your old self will have to die. The habits that once defined you will resist their own extinction. The mind, accustomed to familiar patterns, will protest violently against the demands of virtue. This is why transformation feels like tearing down a house while still living in it. You dismantle the very structures that have sheltered you, trusting that something stronger will rise in their place. The courage to endure that demolition is the mark of a philosopher who understands that a life worth living cannot be built upon the rotting beams of avoidance and denial. Another principle that accelerates transformation is the recognition that your judgments, not events, shape your reality. Epictetus taught that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. You may not control the outcome of every situation, but you control the meaning you attach to it. This is not a hollow motivational slogan. It is a profound discipline to look at an insult and see an opportunity for patience rather than an assault on your dignity. To see failure as instruction, not humiliation. To view loss as a natural transition rather than a cosmic injustice. These are not automatic reactions. They are trained responses, forged through constant examination of your thoughts. And once you realize that meaning is a choice, you understand that no one can truly imprison your mind unless you hand them the key. However, this mental freedom demands relentless self-awareness. It is not enough to know that your judgments shape reality. You must watch your judgments like a hawk. The mind has a habit of slipping back into old interpretations when you are tired, distracted, or wounded. The Stoic trains daily to catch the first flicker of resentment, the first whisper of self-pity, the first spark of arrogance. They extinguish it before it grows into a fire that consumes their clarity. This vigilance is not exhausting. It is liberating because it prevents you from being ruled by unseen forces within yourself. Every moment you catch a distorted thought and replace it with the reasoned one, you reinforce your sovereignty. Then there is the practice of detachment from outcomes. In a culture obsessed with results, this principle can feel alien, even wrong. But the Stoics did not reject ambition, they rejected enslavement to results. You control your actions, your preparation, your discipline, your virtue. You do not control whether the world rewards you in proportion to your effort. When your worth is tied to external outcomes, you place your happiness at the mercy of chance, politics, and the unpredictable tides of life. The Stoic refuses such dependency. They act with full commitment, then release the outcome to fate. This is not apathy, it is mastery. It is the art of giving your best without letting the verdict of the world decide your peace. Transformation also demands that you clarify what is within your control and what is not, and then ruthlessly abandon the illusion of control over the latter. How much time in life is wasted trying to rewrite what cannot be changed? The past will not bend to your regret. The weather will not obey your mood. Other people will not think as you wish them to think. The more energy you spend wrestling with the immovable, the less energy you have to command the one kingdom that is truly yours, your own mind. The Stoic therefore learns to let go, not as a gesture of surrender, but as a declaration of strength. They free themselves from the exhausting labor of trying to govern what was never theirs to rule. Finally, the Stoic understands that transformation is not a sprint, but a practice. One does not become unshakable overnight. It is built through 1,000 small victories over the self, rising when you wish to sleep longer, speaking truth when it would be easier to remain silent, staying calm when anger tempts you to rage. Over time, these moments compound into a character that cannot be easily corrupted or broken. And when you look back, you will not find a single day that changed everything, but rather a series of days in which you refuse to be the same person you were yesterday. This is the essence of immediate transformation, not because you achieve perfection in an instant, but because you begin the work in this very moment, without excuse, without delay. If the first step of transformation is recognizing the sovereignty of the present moment, then the next is mastering the discipline of intention. A life without deliberate intention is not a life at all, but a slow drift into the habits of the crowd. The Stoics knew that if you do not define your principles, the world will define them for you, and the world's version of virtue will always be unstable, rooted in trends, in fear of rejection, in the desperate need to be seen as successful by the shifting judgment of strangers. Epictetus warned that without a guiding aim, you will be tossed like a ship with no rudder, pulled in every direction by winds that are not your own. Transformation begins to accelerate the moment you decide what you stand for, even if no one else approves, even if it costs you praise, money, or comfort. Because once you have chosen your principles, every decision becomes clearer, not easier, but simpler. You know what is acceptable and what is not. You know where to draw the line and when to walk away. But intention without alignment is a hollow promise. Many speak noble principles with their lips, yet betray them with their actions. The Stoic approach demands that every action be weighed against the values you claim to hold. If you say you value discipline, but allow your impulses to command you, your principles are only ornaments for your ego. If you say you value truth but shape your words to avoid conflict, you are serving your fear, not your integrity. This is why the Stoics practiced self-examination daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself each morning, not to inspire others, but to hold his own mind to account. You must do the same. Hold a mirror to your choices, not once in a lifetime, but every day, and ask if they reflect the person you claim to be. This brutal consistency is uncomfortable, yet it is the only soil in which transformation grows without rotting into hypocrisy. Another indispensable principle is the cultivation of stillness, not as a withdrawal from life, but as the sharpening of the inner blade. We live in a world designed to agitate us, to keep us reacting, to flood our senses until we no longer remember what silence feels like. The Stoic trains to be unmoved by this storm, to create a sanctuary of thought within themselves. This is not about meditating on a mountain for years. It is about moments, pausing before replying to an insult, breathing before reacting to bad news, letting your mind see clearly before it speaks. Seneca wrote that to be everywhere is to be nowhere, and this truth is even sharper today. If your attention is scattered across every noise, you will never have the strength to act with focus. Stillness is the act of reclaiming your attention from the chaos, and without it, transformation collapses under the weight of distraction. Closely tied to stillness is the art of emotional governance. The Stoics never sought to kill emotion, as some mistakenly believe. They sought to prevent emotion from becoming a tyrant. Anger, fear, envy, desire. These are natural human experiences, but left untrained, they will lead you like a leash leads a dog. A Stoic does not banish feeling, they interrogate it. Why am I angry? Is my fear based on reality or imagination? Does this desire serve my principles or endanger them? In this questioning, emotion is transformed from a master into an advisor. You hear it, but you are not compelled by it. This separation between the stimulus and your response is perhaps the most immediate form of inner freedom you can claim, because it is the moment you prove to yourself that nothing, no insult, no fear, no desire can force you to betray the person you are becoming. Then comes the discipline of acceptance. Not passive acceptance that tolerates injustice or weakness, but the active acceptance that recognizes reality before attempting to shape it. You cannot heal a wound you refuse to admit exists. You cannot navigate a storm if you insist the sky is clear. The Stoics looked at life with unflinching eyes. Death is certain, loss is inevitable, hardship is part of the path. To pretend otherwise is to live in a fragile fantasy. When you accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, you position yourself to act with clarity rather than wasting time cursing what cannot be undone. This is not cynicism, it is preparation. It is the difference between being surprised by every blow and standing ready to meet it when it comes. Yet acceptance alone is not enough. It must be paired with action, for the Stoic path is not a philosophy of retreat, but of engagement. There is no transformation in the mind alone, it must manifest in the world. The philosopher who speaks wisely yet never acts is like a soldier who polishes his sword but never enters the field. Transformation is proven in the way you show up, in your work, your relationships, your habits, your courage in the face of risk. To study Stoic wisdom is to load your quiver. To live Stoic wisdom is to draw the bow and release the arrow again and again, even when you cannot see where it will land. Another key principle is the rejection of entitlement. Modern life whispers the dangerous idea that you deserve more simply because you exist. The Stoics saw life as a gift that owes you nothing. The world does not owe you health, wealth, love, or recognition. It offers you the raw materials of existence, and it is your task to shape them with virtue. When you drop the expectation that life must be fair, you stop being shocked when it is not. Instead, you become a craftsman of the self, using whatever tools and challenges fate hands you to build a life of substance. This mindset turns every setback into raw material and every privilege into a responsibility. In this way, The Stoic transforms not by demanding better conditions, but by becoming the kind of person who can thrive in any condition. Finally, part 2 must address the discipline of perspective. In the heat of a problem, the mind often shrinks to the size of the difficulty in front of it. The Stoics practice the mental art of stepping back, imagining their troubles from the vantage point of a month, a year, a lifetime, or even from the edge of the cosmos. From such heights, most problems dissolve into small ripples in the vast ocean of existence. This is not a trick to minimize what matters. It is a way to see clearly what truly does. Perspective is a form of liberation. It stops you from trading your peace for the price of momentary inconveniences. And when you see your life from the wide view, you realize that the storms you feared most were not oceans to drown in, but puddles you could step over all along. If perspective teaches us to step back, gratitude teaches us to step closer to the present, to what we already have, to the reality that abundance is rarely a matter of possessions, but of perception. For the Stoics, gratitude was not a polite social gesture. It was a discipline of the mind that reshaped one's entire relationship with life. Seneca reminded himself daily of the countless blessings he had already received: the capacity to reason, the beauty of nature, the gift of friendship, even the challenges that tested his strength. The modern mind often postpones gratitude, waiting for grand victories or rare occasions before acknowledging life's worth. But the Stoic insists on practicing it now, in the smallest moments. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of rain against the roof, the breath you draw without effort. Each is proof that life still offers more than it withholds. When you begin to see these as treasures rather than background noise, you become harder to shake, for your sense of wealth is no longer hostage to fortune. This is because gratitude transforms the economy of your desires. Ingratitude is fertile soil for endless craving. It breeds the illusion that happiness lives somewhere just beyond your current reach. The Stoic sees this as a trap. If you cannot find contentment in what is before you, you will not find it in what you chase. By cultivating gratitude, you train your mind to recognize sufficiency, which is the beginning of freedom from the constant hunger for more. This does not mean you abandon ambition. It means your ambition no longer comes from a place of emptiness, but from the desire to grow, to contribute, to serve something larger than yourself. Gratitude steadies you against the storms of comparison and jealousy, because it anchors you in the truth that your life, even in its imperfect state, is already rich beyond measure. Another principle essential for immediate transformation is the mastery of speech, not in the sense of eloquence or charm, but in the discipline of truth and restraint. Words, once released, cannot be recalled, and the Stoics treated them as serious instruments of virtue or vice. Epictetus cautioned that a careless tongue could undo years of discipline. The modern world, with its unending channels for instant communication, has multiplied the opportunities for self-betrayal through speech. A moment of anger can stain your character. A careless exaggeration can plant seeds of distrust. Gossip can quietly erode the respect you have built. The Stoic practice is to speak less, but with greater weight, to let your words serve either the pursuit of truth, the offering of help, or the correction of injustice. Anything else is noise. And the less you add to the noise of the world, the more clearly your own mind can hear itself. Tied to the mastery of speech is the courage to remain silent when silence is the higher choice. Silence is not the absence of response. It is the refusal to be baited into unworthy battles. Marcus Aurelius noted that the best revenge is not to become like your enemy. In practice, this often means walking away from arguments that cannot yield wisdom, ignoring insults that seek to provoke, and letting others speak falsely without rushing to defend yourself in every instance. This is not cowardice, it is discipline. To respond to every provocation is to surrender your peace to anyone willing to disturb it. Silence, wielded intentionally, is a form of power that can neither be twisted nor defeated. Another Stoic cornerstone is the discipline of preparation. Many people live reactively, stumbling from one crisis to the next, forever surprised that life contains obstacles. The Stoics approached each day as soldiers approach the dawn before battle, by rehearsing in the mind the challenges that might come. This was not pessimism, it was armor. Marcus Aurelius would begin his mornings by reminding himself that he would meet liars, flatterers, the selfish, the ungrateful. Epictetus told his students to expect hardship, betrayal, loss. By imagining these before they arrive, the Stoic is less shocked, less shaken, and more ready to respond with reason rather than rage. Preparation makes transformation immediate because it replaces panic with readiness. The mind that expects difficulty is not broken by it, it meets it as an equal. Linked to preparation is the principle of adaptability. The Stoics never confuse steadfastness with stubbornness. To be steadfast is to hold to your principles regardless of changing conditions. To be stubborn is to cling to your methods even when they no longer serve your principles. A Stoic adapts without surrendering their moral compass. If the path to your goal is blocked, you do not curse the obstacle. You find another route, build another bridge, or redefine the goal itself if it no longer aligns with virtue. Adaptability transforms frustration into opportunity because it trains you to see every disruption, not as the end of the journey, but as a turn in the road you had not foreseen. And often, the detours bring lessons that the straight path could never offer. Another vital practice is the cultivation of resilience through voluntary hardship. Seneca recommended that we, from time to time, strip ourselves of comfort on purpose, to sleep on the floor, to wear coarse clothing, to eat the simplest of meals. This was not to romanticize poverty or to glorify suffering, but to inoculate the mind against fear. If you have already experienced life with less, then the loss of luxury does not terrify you. If you have already tasted hunger by choice, enforced hunger will not break you. Finally, part 3 must speak to the principle of self-reliance. To a Stoic, this does not mean isolating yourself from the world, but ensuring that your sense of stability and worth are not built entirely on the scaffolding of others. The praise of friends, the approval of the public, the support of allies. These are gifts, but they are not guarantees. If your peace collapses when they are withdrawn, then you have built your foundation on sand. Self-reliance is the practice of building a life that remains upright even when applause fades, when help is scarce, when the crowd moves on. It is the art of knowing that your compass is within you, and no matter how the world shifts, you will still know which direction is north. The next step in immediate transformation is the cultivation of moral courage, the willingness to act rightly even when it comes at personal cost. Many people think of courage only in the physical sense, the soldier on the battlefield, the rescuer in a burning building. But the Stoics understood that moral courage often demands more endurance than physical bravery. It is the quiet defiance of a person who refuses to take part in corruption when everyone else is profiting from it. It is the decision to tell the truth, knowing it will turn allies into enemies. It is the refusal to betray your principles, even if breaking them would bring you comfort, safety, or status. This courage is rarely celebrated in the moment. It often makes you unpopular. But in the silence of your own conscience, it is the kind of courage that allows you to meet your own gaze without shame. And without moral courage, transformation is cosmetic. You may appear strong to others, but inwardly you will be brittle. This courage is sustained by another Stoic principle, the refusal to outsource responsibility for your life. There is a seductive comfort in blaming others, the government, your parents, your boss, your partner, for your misfortunes. While injustices and disadvantages certainly exist, the Stoic sees that giving away responsibility is giving away power. If you convince yourself that your life is shaped entirely by forces beyond you, you also convince yourself that you are powerless to change it. Transformation requires the opposite, to take ownership of your choices, your reactions, your growth, even in the face of circumstances you did not choose. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not the external world that makes us better or worse, but the way we respond to it. If you can hold this truth, not just as an idea, but as a law of your being, you will find that the path forward is always under your feet. Connected to responsibility is the discipline of economy, not only with money, but with time, attention, and energy. The Stoic sees these as currencies far more valuable than gold. Time, once spent, cannot be earned back. Attention, once given, shapes the very architecture of your mind. Energy, once drained, takes effort to restore. The modern world will gladly spend all three on your behalf if you let it. Scrolling away your hours, pulling your focus into endless distraction, exhausting you with trivial concerns. The Stoic refuses to be robbed in this way. They guard their time with boundaries, their attention with intention, their energy with discernment. This does not mean living rigidly or joylessly. It means refusing to let the trivial steal from the essential. Transformation accelerates when you stop scattering your strength and begin investing it only where it builds the life you seek. Another pillar of the Stoic path is the practice of benevolence, even toward those who test your patience or treat you unfairly. To many, this sounds naive, but to the Stoic, it is strategic. If you allow hatred or bitterness to take root, you carry your enemy within you long after they have gone. Benevolence, in this sense, is not about approving of wrong behavior or allowing injustice. It is about refusing to poison your own mind with the same malice you condemn in others. Marcus Aurelius, who faced betrayal, war, and political intrigue, still urged himself to remember that people act from ignorance or fear, and that the best response to their faults was to live without sharing them. Transformation flourishes when you can walk through a hostile world without letting its hostility define your inner state. This benevolence is strengthened by the Stoic discipline of humility. In our era, humility is often misunderstood as weakness or self-deprecation. To the Stoic, humility is simply the accurate appraisal of oneself. You recognize your strengths without arrogance and your flaws without despair. You understand that you are neither the lowest nor the highest of human beings, but one among many, subject to the same frailties and the same mortality. Humility guards against the intoxicating effects of success, reminding you that fortune can turn swiftly. It also protects you from paralysis in failure, for it reminds you that every person who has ever achieved greatness has known defeat. Transformation is not about becoming invulnerable to error. It is about becoming the kind of person who learns from error without letting it define them. A further principle that binds the Stoic life together is the relentless pursuit of wisdom. This is not the hoarding of information or the accumulation of clever quotes, but the constant refining of one's understanding of how to live. A Stoic seeks wisdom in the words of philosophers, in the patterns of nature, in the examples of history, and in the mirror of their own experience. This pursuit is never complete. There is always another layer of insight, another weakness to confront, another virtue to strengthen. The danger in transformation is to mistake initial progress for final mastery. The Stoic avoids this trap by living as a perpetual student, ready to revise their judgments, challenge their assumptions, and be humbled by the vastness of what remains unknown. And yet, wisdom unshared is wisdom wasted. This is why another principle of transformation is service, using your strength, your insight, your resources to benefit others. The Stoic understands that a life lived only for oneself shrinks in meaning. Service expands the soul, reminding you that your existence is tied to the larger fabric of humanity. It can be as grand as dedicating your career to a cause, or as simple as offering honest counsel to a friend in need. In each case, service shifts the focus from self-absorption to contribution, and in doing so, it strengthens the virtues you have been cultivating within yourself. You become not only a student of Stoic philosophy, but a living example of it. Finally, Part 4 must close with the principle of mortality awareness. The Stoics spoke often of memento mori, remembering that you will die, not as a morbid fixation, but as a clarifying lens. When you hold death in mind, trivial quarrels lose their grip, possessions lose their illusion of permanence, and the urgency to live with integrity becomes impossible to ignore. Life becomes lighter, not because it matters less, but because you see how precious and temporary it is. Transformation becomes immediate the moment you stop living as though you have endless time and begin living as though every decision, every word, every act of virtue might be your last. For one day it will be. Alright, here's part 4, keeping the same tone, pacing, and depth. Many people think of courage only in the physical sense, the soldier on the battlefield, the rescuer in a burning building. But the Stoics understood that moral courage often demands more endurance than physical bravery. It is the quiet defiance of a person who refuses to take part in corruption when everyone else is profiting from it. It is the decision to tell the truth, knowing it will turn allies into enemies. It is the refusal to betray your principles, even if breaking them would bring you comfort, safety, or status. This courage is rarely celebrated in the moment. It often makes you unpopular. But in the silence of your own conscience, it is the kind of courage that allows you to meet your own gaze without shame. And without moral courage, transformation is cosmetic. You may appear strong to others, but inwardly you will be brittle. This courage is sustained by another Stoic principle, the refusal to outsource responsibility for your life. There is a seductive comfort in blaming others, the government, your parents, your boss, your partner, for your misfortunes. While injustices and disadvantages certainly exist, the Stoic sees that giving away responsibility is giving away power. If you convince yourself that your life is shaped entirely by forces beyond you, you also convince yourself that you are powerless to change it. Transformation requires the opposite, to take ownership of your choices, your reactions, your growth, even in the face of circumstances you did not choose. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not the external world that makes us better or worse, but the way we respond to it. If you can hold this truth, not just as an idea, but as a law of your being, you will find that the path forward is always under your feet. Connected to responsibility is the discipline of economy, not only with money, but with time, attention, and energy. The Stoic sees these as currencies far more valuable than gold. Time, once spent, cannot be earned back. Attention, once given, shapes the very architecture of your mind. Energy, once drained, takes effort to restore. The modern world will gladly spend all three on your behalf if you let it, scrolling away your hours, pulling your focus into endless distraction, exhausting you with trivial concerns. The Stoic refuses to be robbed in this way. They guard their time with boundaries, their attention with intention, their energy with discernment. This does not mean living rigidly or joylessly. It means refusing to let the trivial steal from the essential. Transformation accelerates when you stop scattering your strength and begin investing it only where it builds the life you seek. Another pillar of the Stoic path is the practice of benevolence, even toward those who test your patience or treat you unfairly. To many, this sounds naive, but to the Stoic, it is strategic. If you allow hatred or bitterness to take root, you carry your enemy within you long after they have gone. Benevolence, in this sense, is not about approving of wrong behavior or allowing injustice. It is about refusing to poison your own mind with the same malice you condemn in others. Marcus Aurelius, who faced betrayal, war, and political intrigue, still urged himself to remember that people act from ignorance or fear, and that the best response to their faults was to live without sharing them. Transformation flourishes when you can walk through a hostile world without letting its hostility define your inner state. This benevolence is strengthened by the Stoic discipline of humility. In our era, humility is often misunderstood as weakness or self-deprecation. To the Stoic, humility is simply the accurate appraisal of oneself. You recognize your strengths without arrogance and your flaws without despair. You understand that you are neither the lowest nor the highest of human beings, but one among many, subject to the same frailties and the same mortality. Humility guards against the intoxicating effects of success, reminding you that fortune can turn swiftly. It also protects you from paralysis and failure, for it reminds you that every person who has ever achieved greatness has known defeat. Transformation is not about becoming invulnerable to error. It is about becoming the kind of person who learns from error without letting it define them. A further principle that binds the Stoic life together is the relentless pursuit of wisdom. This is not the hoarding of information or the accumulation of clever quotes, but the constant refining of one's understanding of how to live. A Stoic seeks wisdom in the words of philosophers, in the patterns of nature, in the examples of history, and in the mirror of their own experience. This pursuit is never complete. There is always another layer of insight, another weakness to confront, another virtue to strengthen. The danger in transformation is to mistake initial progress for final mastery. The Stoic avoids this trap by living as a perpetual student, ready to revise their judgments, challenge their assumptions, and be humbled by the vastness of what remains unknown. And yet, wisdom unshared is wisdom wasted. This is why another principle of transformation is service, using your strength, your insight, your resources to benefit others. The Stoic understands that a life lived only for oneself shrinks in meaning. Service expands the soul, reminding you that your existence is tied to the larger fabric of humanity. It can be as grand as dedicating your career to a cause, or as simple as offering honest counsel to a friend in need. In each case, service shifts the focus from self-absorption to contribution, and in doing so, it strengthens the virtues you have been cultivating within yourself. You become not only a student of Stoic philosophy, but a living example of it. Finally, Part 4 must close with the principle of mortality awareness. The Stoics spoke often of memento mori, remembering that you will die, not as a morbid fixation, but as a clarifying lens. When you hold death in mind, trivial quarrels lose their grip, possessions lose their illusion of permanence, and the urgency to live with integrity becomes impossible to ignore. Life becomes lighter, not because it matters less, but because you see how precious and temporary it is. Transformation becomes immediate, the moment you stop living as though you have endless time and begin living as though every decision, every word, every act of virtue might be your last. For one day, it will be. Now, some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better every day" so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Transformation deepens when you embrace the discipline of endurance. Not just surviving hardship, but doing so without surrendering your moral compass. The Stoics understood that pain, loss, and exhaustion were not reasons to abandon virtue. They were the very conditions in which virtue proved its worth. Anyone can speak wisely when the room is warm and the table is full. But when sleep has been stolen from you, when hunger grinds at your patience, when grief tries to hollow you out, that is when your true philosophy is revealed. Endurance is not a grim clenching of the teeth. It is the calm refusal to be broken by what you cannot avoid. Seneca wrote that difficulty strengthens the mind as labor strengthens the body, and those who understand this no longer see trials as interruptions, but as integral parts of the path. This endurance is fortified by the Stoic habit of detachment from possessions. In our age, wealth is often mistaken for security, but the Stoics saw that attachment to possessions is a hidden form of dependency. You do not own them, they own you, because the thought of losing them disturbs your peace. The Stoic trains themselves to use what they have without becoming its servant. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the fine clothes, the grand houses, the gold and silver will one day belong to someone else or to no one at all. By loosening your grip on possessions, you free your hands to hold more tightly to what cannot be taken: your character, your reason, your virtue. Transformation is accelerated the moment you can walk through a light of abundance without becoming drunk on it, and through a light of scarcity without becoming bitter. Alongside detachment from possessions is detachment from praise. Human beings are wired to crave approval. It reassures us that we belong, that we are valued. But the Stoics warned that this craving can make us slaves to the opinions of others. If you only act with courage when you are applauded, then your courage belongs not to you, but to the crowd. If you speak the truth only when it will be celebrated, then you have made honesty conditional on applause. True transformation requires that you do what is right, whether the world cheers or condemns you. Epictetus told his students to remember that they are actors in a play written by another. Your role is not to rewrite the script so the audience likes you, but to play your part with excellence, regardless of the reaction. This freedom from praise extends naturally to freedom from criticism. The Stoics did not advocate ignoring useful feedback. They welcomed it when it was just and true. But they refused to let the unthinking opinions of others wound them. If a stranger calls you foolish, and you know you have acted with reason, their judgment changes nothing in reality. If someone mocks your discipline, it is a reflection of their discomfort, not your error. By learning to filter criticism through the lens of your own examined conscience, you remove the sting from insults and the poison from slander. This frees you to live authentically because your peace no longer depends on unanimous agreement. Another Stoic principle that fuels immediate transformation is simplicity. Complexity often disguises weakness. It creates excuses for inaction. A Stoic pares life down to what is essential, not because they fear richness of experience, but because they value clarity over clutter. This simplicity applies to possessions, to speech, to goals, and even to relationships. The more you simplify, the fewer distractions pull you from your principles, and the easier it becomes to see the path ahead. Simplicity is a force multiplier for discipline. When your life is free of unnecessary entanglements, you have more energy to direct toward what truly matters. Interwoven with simplicity is the cultivation of patience. Patience, in the Stoic sense, is not passive waiting, it is active endurance in the pursuit of a worthy goal. It is planting a tree and tending it for years before you taste its fruit. It is working at a craft long before anyone notices your skill. Patience refuses to measure worth by immediate results, recognizing that the deepest transformations often happen slowly, invisibly beneath the surface. Impatience is rooted in the illusion that we control the pace of the world. Patience rests on the understanding that we control only the constancy of our effort. To close this section, we arrive at the principle of alignment between thought and action. A Stoic life is one in which your stated values are visible in your daily behavior. If you claim to value wisdom, it should be evident in the books you read, the questions you ask, and the humility with which you listen. If you claim to value justice, it should be seen in the way you treat those who cannot repay you. This alignment is rare because it demands vigilance. Every choice, every word, every habit must be weighed against the standard you claim to uphold. But when thought and action are aligned, your transformation becomes not just an internal shift, but a visible force that influences the world around you. Transformation is incomplete without the discipline of self-mastery. The art of ruling yourself before attempting to influence anything beyond your own mind. The Stoics held that the inability to control one's impulses is the greatest form of slavery, for it places your actions in the hands of whatever passion happens to be strongest in the moment. Anger can make you say words you regret for years. Lust can pull you into decisions that corrode your character. Fear can chain you to inaction, making your life a series of missed opportunities. Self-mastery does not mean suppressing these feelings into oblivion. It means understanding them, seeing their rise within you, and choosing your course deliberately rather than automatically. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the mind has the power to retreat into itself and to decide what kind of world it will inhabit, regardless of what happens outside. When you master yourself, you are no longer a puppet to external events, but the author of your own conduct. Self-mastery also demands discipline over the body. The Stoics were not hedonistic nor puritanical. They saw the body as a servant of the mind and therefore worthy of care and training. A body weakened by neglect will betray you in moments when strength is required. A body addicted to indulgence will resist when discipline calls. This is why voluntary hardship, cold baths, fasting, physical exertion was not mere asceticism, but a way to remind the body who is in command. The stronger and more obedient your body is to your will, the freer you are to pursue higher purposes without being constantly pulled down by physical weakness or craving. Yet physical discipline must be matched by mental discipline, for the mind, too, tends toward laziness if not exercised. The Stoic feeds the mind with study, reflection, and exposure to challenging ideas. Mental discipline means you are not swayed by every opinion, nor do you adopt beliefs simply because they are popular. You test ideas against reason, reality, and virtue. You refuse to be intoxicated by novelty for novelty's sake, just as you refuse to cling to tradition simply because it is old. Transformation takes root when you become a guardian of your own mind, deciding deliberately what is allowed to enter and what must be rejected. Another critical principle for immediate transformation is the management of expectations. Many people live in a constant state of frustration because they secretly believe life allows them a smooth path. The Stoics rejected this outright. Life, by its nature, includes difficulty, betrayal, illness, loss, and injustice. By lowering your expectation that life should be free of hardship, you paradoxically raise your capacity to face hardship without being destroyed by it. Epictetus advised his students to anticipate setbacks as they anticipate the setting of the sun. It is not a tragedy, but a certainty. When you expect the world to act according to its own nature, you stop wasting energy wishing it were otherwise and start directing your focus toward what can actually be influenced, your own choices. This brings us to the discipline of purposeful action. The Stoics valued efficiency not in the mechanical sense, but in the moral one. 1. Every action should be aligned with a worthy aim. Time spent in gossip is time stolen from growth. Effort spent in resentment is effort stolen from creation. To act purposefully is to weigh your decisions against the question, will this bring me closer to the life I am meant to live? If not, you abandon it without regret. This principle transforms your daily routine into a deliberate path, cutting away the overgrowth of trivialities so the trail ahead is clear. Closely related is the principle of integrity in solitude. It is easy to appear virtuous in public, where the eyes of others hold you accountable. But the true test of character is how you act when you believe no one is watching. The Stoic knows that the self is never truly hidden. You carry your own witness inside you. Lying to others is damaging. Lying to yourself is fatal. Transformation becomes enduring only when the virtues you display in the public square are the same virtues you live by in the quiet corners of your life. There, when there is no reward for virtue except the knowledge that you have lived by it, your transformation solidifies into something unshakable. Finally, Part 6 must address the Stoic practice of daily reflection. Each evening, you turn your mind back over the events of the day, not to wallow in regret, but to examine with honesty where you upheld your principles and where you fell short. Seneca wrote that he judged himself daily, as though standing before a court in which he was both the accused and the judge. This practice sharpens your awareness, preventing small errors from growing into lasting flaws. It turns each day into a lesson, ensuring that tomorrow you face the world with greater clarity than you had today. In this way, transformation is not a single leap forward, but a steady climb. one you make consciously, with both humility and resolve. A transformation rooted in Stoic principles cannot ignore the necessity of emotional clarity. This is the art of knowing exactly what you feel and why you feel it before allowing that feeling to shape your decisions. Most people mistake emotional intensity for truth, assuming that because they feel something strongly, it must be justified. The Stoic rejects this. Strong emotion may be a signal worth examining, but it is not proof of reality. Anger may reveal injustice, or it may reveal your own pride. Fear may be a warning, or it may be the shadow of your imagination. Love may inspire virtue, or blind you to what is harmful. The Stoic practice is to pause, identify the root of the feeling, question its validity, and only then choose the course of action. This clarity prevents your life from being written by the mood of the moment. This clarity is strengthened by another principle, deliberate association. Who you spend your time with shapes your thoughts, your habits, and your character. Epictetus warned that if you spend time with those who value trivial pleasures, you will eventually value them too. If you walk with the virtuous, their example will sharpen your own. Transformation is not only about what you add to your life, but also what you subtract, including relationships that pull you away from the person you intend to be. This is not cruelty, it is an act of stewardship over your own mind. When you guard your inner circle, you protect the soil in which your principles grow. Linked to deliberate association is the principle of selective exposure. The modern mind is bombarded with information, much of it designed to provoke outrage, envy, or fear. The Stoic treats attention as a precious resource, refusing to feed the mind with what will make it weaker. You cannot live a tranquil life if you immerse yourself in chaos every day. This does not mean avoiding reality. It means choosing your sources of reality wisely. Read what strengthens your reason. Watch what elevates your understanding. Listen to what makes you more disciplined, not more distracted. The content you consume becomes the raw material from which your thoughts are built, and those thoughts will shape your actions. Another principle essential to transformation is reconciliation with impermanence. The Stoics never clung to the illusion that what is here today will be here tomorrow. Everything changes: friendships, fortunes, health, opportunities, even the self you are now. By accepting this, you free yourself from the desperate grasping that turns change into suffering. When you stop expecting permanence, you learn to fully appreciate what is present while it is here, and to let it go without bitterness when it leaves. This does not make you detached in a cold way. It makes you deeply present because you no longer take the present for granted. Alongside acceptance of impermanence comes the principle of proportionate response. Most harm done in the world is not the result of evil intentions, but of overreactions. A small insult becomes a lifelong grudge. A minor setback becomes a reason to abandon an entire goal. The Stoic disciplines themselves to match their response to the actual weight of the event. They refuse to let a passing inconvenience trigger the same emotional force as a genuine tragedy. By keeping reactions proportionate, they conserve their energy for what truly matters, ensuring that the fires of their passion are used to warm and guide, not burn indiscriminately. An equally transformative discipline is the honoring of commitments. The Stoic does not give their word lightly, and once it is given, they see it through, unless doing so would require them to violate a higher principle. Reliability is the visible form of integrity. It is how others learn that your character is more than talk. In an age where promises are easily broken and excuses are abundant, keeping your commitments becomes a quiet act of rebellion against mediocrity. This builds trust not only in the eyes of others, but in your own eyes. You begin to believe in yourself because you have proven that your actions follow your intentions. Finally, Part 7 must close with the principle of joy in alignment. The Stoics were not cold statues immune to happiness. They simply sought a form of joy that could not be stolen by fortune. This joy comes from living in harmony with your values, knowing that your actions reflect the person you aspire to be. It is not the giddy high of momentary pleasure, but the deep, steady warmth of a conscience at peace. When you live this way, transformation becomes self-sustaining because you no longer chase fulfillment. You live in it. The final phase of transformation through Stoic practice is the weaving together of all preceding principles into what the ancients called a well-ordered life. It is not enough to master them in fragments. Discipline here, patience there, courage in some situations, but not others. The Stoic seeks to integrate these virtues so that they flow naturally, each reinforcing the other. Courage without wisdom becomes recklessness. Patience without action becomes stagnation. Self-mastery without compassion becomes rigidity. The transformation is complete when your virtues form a coherent whole, each serving the highest aim, to live in accordance with reason and nature, guided by virtue rather than chance. This integration requires ongoing vigilance because virtues can decay in silence. Neglect the practice of gratitude and ambition will sour into greed. Stop guarding your associations, and the character you've built will be worn down by subtle influences. Cease reflecting daily, and small moral compromises will multiply until you barely recognize yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often that the mind, left unattended, will wander into vice as naturally as a neglected garden grows weeds. Thus, transformation is not a one-time awakening, but a continuous cultivation. Pulling weeds, planting seeds, and nourishing what is good. At this stage, the Stoic also embraces the principle of legacy, not in the sense of monuments or fame, but in the quiet impact of a life well lived. You may never know the full reach of your actions, the apprentice who learns discipline from your example, the friend who chooses honesty because you modeled it, the stranger who gains courage from a small kindness you offered without expectation. The Stoic understands that influence is not measured in followers or headlines, but in the unseen ripples that move outward from every virtuous act. Living well is not only for your own peace, but for the benefit of a world in which your existence leaves fewer shadows and more light. Another element that binds the transformation is the recognition of mutual humanity. Even as you strengthen yourself, you remain aware that others are fighting battles you cannot see. The Stoic avoids the arrogance of the self-made myth, knowing that no one is entirely self-made. Your teachers, whether intentional or accidental, have shaped you. The trials given by fate have tested you. Even your enemies have, in their own way, sharpened your resilience. To acknowledge this is not to diminish your work. It is to root it in reality and prevent it from curdling into pride. From here flows the principle of measured ambition. The Stoic does not reject goals, but they refuse to let goals enslave them. They work diligently for what is worthy, yet they are prepared to adjust course without despair when fate closes one path and opens another. This is the paradox of Stoic ambition. You strive with your whole being, yet you accept with grace whatever outcome arrives. This balance frees you from the twin poisons of apathy and obsession, allowing you to live fully engaged without being consumed by any single aim. The closing principle, the one that perhaps contains all others, is constancy. To be constant is to be the same person in adversity and prosperity, in solitude and in company, in victory and in loss. Constancy is the proof that your transformation is genuine, because it shows that your virtue does not depend on circumstances. It is easy to be disciplined when life is orderly. Constancy is discipline that survives disorder. It is easy to be kind when you are rested. Constancy is kindness that endures fatigue. It is easy to be courageous when you feel confident. Constancy is courage when your hands are trembling. When constancy takes root, you have become the kind of person the Stoics envisioned, not perfect, but unshakable in your commitment to live well. The reward for living by these principles is not immunity from pain, loss, or hardship. The Stoics never promised that. The reward is something rarer, an inner fortress that no storm can breach, a mind that cannot be bought or broken, a spirit that remains in harmony with itself regardless of the chaos outside. This is the immediate transformation the Stoics offer, not the illusion of control over the world, but the mastery of yourself within it. And once you taste that freedom, you will see why they believed that to govern yourself is the greatest victory a human being can win. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.